And maybe there was a kind of unspoken understanding that he was giving people a bit more than just his magic, if you know what I'm saying. Stardew Valley. A fresh start. An escape from all the hustle and the bustle of the city, and a chance to truly embrace community living. And what better way to involve ourselves into the small town community and connect with the locals than to immediately involve ourselves in infidelity drama. This man claims he not just looks like a DILF, but is one. Meaning he is a dad, he is a child. Everybody's gossiping among themselves, trying to figure out who was left behind when he went to go grab his magic forest juice. He'll be back, guys, I swear. Now I know what you're thinking. The game already tells us who their kid is. No, it doesn't. It gives us some hints at who it might be, and maybe some red herrings, but no one seems to want to do the legwork to conclusively figure out who this kid is. Until today. You're welcome. Look at these women. One of these women is secretly half wizard. Are wizards considered human in this game? Or is wizard like a title you earn after a certain amount of time? Regardless, we're going to go on a journey together to figure out which one of these ladies it is. And you know what? I'm a YouTuber for the people. I know the person that you're most curious about. And you know what? I'm going to talk about them first. That's right. You don't have to wait till the end of the video to hear about them. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong right now. Surely the title is just clickbait. I hear you say to yourself as you go and click on the video anyway. There is so much evidence in the game that Abigail is the wizard's daughter. It's basically confirmed. Is it? Go with me here. I want you to look at this image. It seems pretty airtight when you take it all in at once, huh? And I'm not saying there's nothing here. I'm just saying it's not as airtight as you might think it is. Let's take each of these quotes and explore them within the context of the characters. Let's start with the first one. The wizard himself. Oh, the wizard. What I could say about the wizard, I will say, because there's actually not that much to say. Wizard basically has three important functions story-wise. One, they're the one with all the nature, magic attunement. They're the reason you're able to communicate with the Junimos and complete the community center, which is the longest and most important quest in the game. Two, they have a very contentious relationship with their ex-wife, which also kicks off another post-game quest. And three, they have a suspicion that one of the women in Pelican Town is actually their secret daughter, which is like the least important as far as the gameplay goes, but the one we care about most for this video. Let me give you the exact quote. You mustn't tell anyone, but I have reasons to believe one of the locals might be my daughter. I could be mistaken. It's rare, but it does happen. Okay, so what do we do with this? Let's start simple. Why does the wizard think he has an illegitimate daughter? We know he built his wizard's tower in Stardew Valley because of the magical field that exists there. Considering that Carolyn used to take walks to the wizard's tower, we know he must have built it before she moved there, which was 1 year before Abigail was born. Since Abigail is doing online college classes during the game, I'm going to assume that she's probably somewhere in her 20s. So he's lived there for at least 20-something years, although it's not too much of a stretch to think he might have been there for more. Needless to say, he's been there for a while. As for why he thinks one of the locals is his daughter, let's take a look at the magical inquest. Have I ever told you that I used to be married? Strange, I know, for a man like me, but it's true. My wife and I were together for many years until I made a mistake that drove her away. Her anger and envy were so intense that she turned green and started flying around the countryside, cursing everything in her path. When I found out, I sealed the passage to her home. I feared an innocent villager might fall prey to her dark magic. I would do this myself, but I can't see her again. You will also say, at 6 hearts, I was married, long ago. After my wife and I split, she began flying around the countryside, cursing everything she saw. It's not a very mature way to express one's anger. Okay, so are you starting to see the bigger picture here? So he did something bad. Really bad. Bad enough that his wife left him and started cursing out the people in the countryside. Something that he still feels so ashamed of that he can't bring himself to see her. You're probably connecting the dots already. But the wizard thinks he has an illegitimate daughter because he's been having fun times with the ladies down in Stardew Valley. And yes, I do think it's ladies plural. I think his mistake is that he couldn't, or I should say wouldn't, be faithful. Maybe he wanted a better chance of having a magical kid so he could take on an apprentice. Maybe he's just persuaded by the desires of his own flesh. I don't really know. But I think back in the day when the older ladies like Marnie and Jody and Caroline, etc. were younger, he was kind of like a John Redcorn type of character. Like, maybe before they had JoJo Industry, they utilize his magical powers and talents to get certain favors. And maybe there was a kind of unspoken understanding that he was giving people a bit more than just his magic, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that if he had been reckless, could have fathered multiple children. Obviously he didn't. The second part of the line is, I could be mistaken. It's rare, but it does happen. Focusing specifically on the rare part. If he is trying to have some whiz kids, that could mean his magical nature makes pregnancy more unlikely for people. Or if he's doing it because he's feeling a little bit slutty, maybe he has some kind of method that has a very low chance of resulting in pregnancy. Spells, sorcery, magical condoms, who can say? I think we should take a moment to acknowledge that he does say, I could be mistaken. The wizard might not have a kid at all. Or they could have a kid and not even realize that that's their kid. There is an alternate universe where he says child instead of daughter. And I tell you why I think Sebastian's actually the wizard's kid, which, believe it or not, is actually not a crack theory. I have real, compelling reasons to believe this might be possible. But the wizard does say he thinks he has a girl, so... Transmax Sebastian? No, I'm joking. Although the more I think about it, the more it could be a fun companion video. The transphobic wizard and his secret transmask emo kid crack theory. Sorry, I'm getting off track. So the wording of this does imply that he has an idea of who he thinks his kid might be, but doesn't actually know if they're his or not. So here's what I'm taking from this. The wizard was kind of a player. He was doing more than just observing the locals. But his wife found out and was pissed and started going around cursing people, probably because they were getting frisky with her man. And the wizard, feeling extremely ashamed of himself, stops his little visits and just buries himself in his arcane work. Since this is a long time ago, I think we can put this down the timeline as like 20-ish years ago, maybe 30. I want to use this timeline because, one, I think it makes sense from the evidence we've been provided, but two, it also gives us a very clear candidate pool to draw from. Caroline is kind of another, more popular theory about who the wizard's kid might be. But she moved to Stardew Valley a year before Abigail was born, so it doesn't really make sense given the timeline we're working with. And I'd also exclude all the other women her age, so Robin, Jody, Marnie, etc. Jess is another contender I see thrown around, but for this timeline to work, she would be way too young for this to be the case, and she's Shane's godkid, she had parents before. I don't think there's any evidence that they lived in Stardew Valley beforehand, so I don't think she's a very strong candidate for this either. So I think our best candidates to put forward are going to be the 6 bachelorettes. Leia lives in the city and only moved to Stardew Valley recently, so she's out. And Mari was biracial and very clearly Demetrius' kid, so she's out. That leaves Haley, Emily, Penny, and Abigail as our most likely candidates. So we take this as evidence that Abigail is certainly in the running, but she's not a shoo-in. Oh, Pierre. All my homies hate Pierre. I don't hate him, but I don't think he's a good guy. Let's look at the quote, shall we? Does Abigail look anything like me? Don't tell my wife, but sometimes I wonder if I'm really the father. Okay, that's heavy. That's a pretty heavy thing to have plague your mind. I wonder why he thinks he might not be the father. Let's start with the first thing he asks. Does Abigail look anything like me? Which, yeah, she kind of does. I mean, she does look more like her mother, but genetically speaking, that's not that strange. A lot of kids will take more after one parent than the other. Like my little brother and I both look a lot more like her mom than we do her dad. Just an example. But I can see where she looks more like Pierre than Carolyn. Her lips are fuller, which is more like her father. Her eyes and her eyebrow shape are a little more similar to his as well. Her hair is also more like wavy curly like his is. She also looks a little more stocky than Carolyn, which would make sense. Pierre was a boxer and his frame just looks to be a little more stocky, so I could definitely see her getting that from him. Again, she definitely looks more like Carolyn, but it's not like there's none of Pierre in her. Obviously, this is a subjective observation, but yes, in my opinion, she does kind of look like him. So why does Pierre think he might not be the father? As far as we know, Pierre does not know about Carolyn visiting the Wizard's Tower when she was younger. Carolyn does say that Pierre is very jealous, but at least in the time we get to know her, she doesn't do anything shady that seems like it would warrant that behavior. She hangs out in her greenhouse. She exercises with her girlfriends every Tuesday. She helps Evelyn in the gardens. Like, nothing she does or says suggests that she goes and cheats on her husband. She does say some interesting things about Pierre in their past, but I'm going to wait till her section to get into that. I have a different theory on why Pierre might think he's not the biological father. If you have at least 6 hearts with Pierre and you enter into the general store, you'll get this cutscene. The game doesn't say what the secret stash is, but we can assume from context clues that it's... what's a YouTube-friendly way of saying this? Adult materials? I know some people think it might be pot, but considering the way Pierre reacts towards the player, I think it's a lot more likely that it's the former. He asks us not to tell anybody, and we can either say, your secret's safe with me, or your wife should know about this. Which, by the way, if you choose the latter, you lose 500 friendship points. That is 2 full hearts. If you choose the first option, he'll say, thanks, I appreciate that. Just right you ever saw this, okay? Then I'll forget that you're snooping around in my bedroom. And if you choose the second option, he says, you would really do that to me? You're terrible. You shouldn't have snooped around my bedroom in the first place. Nosy neighbors are the worst. Then regardless of what you choose to say, he says he needs to find a new hiding spot. Let's focus on the second option. You would do that to me? You're terrible. Not, you're right. I shouldn't be hiding illicit materials from my wife. Not, oh, I am so ashamed that I've broke my wife's trust and have brought my neighbor in on my shameful habits. Like, zero thought towards his wife or how this might impact her and this betrayal of their marriage. He is like solely focused on himself. He would see you telling his wife about his activities as a personal betrayal. Like, I could maybe see this being okay if he was like, hey, she should hear it from me, I should be the one to tell her, please don't tell her so I can. Which, like, yeah, he should. But he doesn't say that. He very clearly has zero intentions of telling his wife about this. I probably don't even need to say this next part, but I'm going to say it anyway just to make sure we're all on the same page. This is really messed up. Marriages are built and maintained based on mutual love, respect, and trust between each other. And it is okay for individual relationships to have their own rules and boundaries about what is or isn't okay in that relationship. The fact that he's hiding the material suggests that his wife is not okay with the behavior, and he knows she's not okay with it. And he is purposely choosing to violate her trust and hide this from her. Now, if this is something he absolutely needs in his life, he could be honest with her and say, like, hey, here's what I'm doing. And then she can make her own informed decision on whether that's something she wants to accept and stay in the relationship or not. Or he could decide that this activity is not as important as being in a relationship with his wife and making sure that she feels loved and respected and secure. But instead, he decides to do whatever he wants and not tell his wife, because he wants all the benefits that come from being in a secure and loving relationship, while also enjoying all the novelty and excitement of doing non-kosher things with people that aren't in your relationship. Can you tell I've dealt with a man like this before? And just to be clear, I don't see this behavior as cheating. I really only consider cheating to be when someone with someone else who is not inside their exclusive relationship. But it absolutely is a betrayal of trust, and it's boundary crossing, which is also not okay and not cool to do. And it is specifically a betrayal of trust because he is hiding it from her. And if they had already previously agreed upon that this was a fine thing that they were okay with having in the relationship, then it wouldn't really matter. It's the lying and the hiding that makes it bad, not necessarily the action itself. Because people are going to say, like, oh, it's not that serious, all men do it. Which, one, no they don't. And two, yes it is. If you told your partner that you were not going to be doing a certain action, and then you start doing that action and lying to them about it, that is very serious and not okay. I'm sorry this section's a little heavy, but I do need to establish this for the rest of this to make sense. Pierre is jealous and thinks his wife might be being unfaithful because he himself is unfaithful. And he is projecting onto his wife to avoid his own guilt and shame. Because if she's also cheating on him, then he's really not that bad if he has these materials, is he? Then they're both guilty. They both hold the blame. I know this is going to sound like really weird to anyone who hasn't experienced this, but if one partner is cheating, they will almost always accuse the other partner of also being unfaithful and cheating, even if the other partner didn't do anything to warrant that suspicion. I did read a research paper on a psychology study that was focused specifically on this phenomenon, because I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. Like, this is a real documented behavior. I'm going to read you a portion of it so you can understand why this is the case.
We propose that when people are attracted to alternative romantic partners, they tend to see their partners as similarly attracted to alternative partners, a projection bias. In turn, those who project high levels of extradyadic attraction onto their partner may respond with anger and negative behavior toward their partner. In this way, an egocentric bias to assume that partners are like the self can lead people to see relationship-threatening aspects of self as characterizing their partner, evoking negative reactions that exacerbate relationship problems.
This means that when people are attracted to other people outside of their own relationship, they will often assume that the other person is also attracted to other people. Because of their own egos, they assume that if they have any characteristics that could possibly threaten the relationship, then that must mean the partner also has those same characteristics, and they will react and treat their partners negatively because of this assumption. I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. I don't see this as evidence that Abigail is the wizard's daughter. I think this is evidence that Pierre has a wandering eye. Because he's an egotistical little prick, he assumes his wife is no better than he is. But she is, and I'm about to prove it. Oh, sweet Caroline. Look, I don't want to over-extrapolate. No, don't look at the runtime. But I do get the vibe that being married to Pierre isn't exactly awesome sauce for our gal. I know I usually start with a quote about the wizard, but I actually want to give you some Pierre quotes before I go into that. I wish Pierre would spend this time with his family. I'm getting all my holiday shopping done tonight. Let me know if you see Pierre coming. When we first moved here, it took me a while to settle down. I wasn't ready for domestic life. Pierre's a bit traditional, but he's a good man. He's ambitious, but he always puts his family first. Maybe I'm a Pierre hater. Look, again, I don't want to make up things that aren't there. I'm just saying when you take these quotes and put them in the context of each other, it doesn't paint the most flattering picture of our guy. But anyway, here's the wizard quote. When we first moved to Pelican Town, I used to take secret walks to the wizard's tower. Don't tell Pierre. He has jealousy issues. Abigail was born about a year after we moved to Pelican Town. I wonder if she'll ever experience life outside the valley. Yes, I hear you're saying this could totally be used as evidence for the Abigail theory. I'm not denying that, but I do think there's another way you could take this quote. If we take the second part of this quote in context with the first part, we do get kind of a different interpretation. I read this as Carolyn used to be a lot more like Abigail, more of like a free spirit, and she has a complicated relationship with her daughter because of it. Like, I do think she genuinely loves Abigail, but I think she lost a lot of herself when she moved to that valley with Pierre. But, like, she used to have dreams. She wanted to be a ranger, goddammit. No, I think being married to Pierre for 20-something years has kind of worn down her sparkle. He's described as being traditional, he makes very pro-capitalistic marks, except when negatively affects him. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to assume he might hold some not amazing gender views. Especially if he feels justified in doing extramarital activities, but feels paranoid and upset at the idea his wife might be doing the same thing. So she's alone in this town, she has no family there. She moved there with Pierre, and within 3 months of living there, she's pregnant. I don't know if they were married for very long before they moved there. They do look pretty young in the portraits, so I'm going to assume they weren't. And this might be a case where she wasn't aware of all the characteristic problems with Pierre, and when she got pregnant with Abigail, she was a lot more reluctant to leave. I don't want to get too depressy again and get into how abuse can shape a victim's mind, especially because abuse in this case would be such a loaded word to use. I will say that I don't think Pierre cultivated an environment where Caroline felt like she could fully be herself. I think she used to take secret walks to the wizard's tower because she is really into gardening and tea brewing and mindful meditation. And the wizard probably was also into these things or adjacent things and was able to help her start her hobby in the valley. I think she misses when she felt like she had more freedom. And even though part of her wants to fit her daughter into a mold, like how she felt she herself had to fit into a mold, I also think she wants Abigail to experience freedom and get to experience life in a way she never really got to. So this text is not necessarily proof that Carolyn cheated on Pierre with the wizard. You could really take it this way and use it as evidence if you wanted to, but it's far from a confirmation. The hair kills me. It's so important. It's almost the linchpin of the theory. The Carolyn walking by the tower, the Pierre having his parental doubts, these are all very compelling, but the hair is a thing where people point to and say, yes, see? Purple? What could it mean? Honestly, what could it mean? I think we established how hair genetics work in this game. That's a straw bottle. Alright, you see these lines? Red means blood relation between a parent and a child. Green means relationship between people that's blood related, but not parent and child. And blue means they share the same hair color. You see how many blue lines there are? That's right. 1. Now 3 things might be jumping out at you. 1. Maru. Is her hair not just a lighter version of her dad's hair? Maybe it doesn't look like that to me. It looks more like a darker version of Vincent's hair. It has a very pinkish purple overtone. So I don't think it looks similar enough where I'm going to count it. If you want to count it though, I'm not going to argue with you. And what about Alex and his grandparents? Well, George is bald, and Ellen has gone gray, so their data is less than irrelevant. 3. What about Jess? Well, Jess is Shane's godchild. There is no indication that they're blood related at all. She could very easily be the child of close friends of his, so for that reason, I'm not going to include her. But obviously, you're not getting a complete picture here, right? If we're going with the assumption that Pierre is Abigail's biological father, which is what we're doing for the purpose of this theory, they really have 4 kids with both known parents and 2 kids with only one known parent. The 2 fatherless kids, Sebastian and Penny, they do not have the same hair color as their known parent. Of course, you can hand-wave this easily by saying that they resemble their offspring fathers, but I have no way to confirm or deny that. Of the 4 kids with confirmed sets of both parents, only one of them shares a hair color with their parents, which is Sam and Kent. They're both blonde. Technically speaking, Kent has more of like a dirty blonde hair, and Sam has like a platinum blonde. But as someone who is a natural blonde and comes from a long line of natural blondes, I can confirm that it is very normal for your hair to darken or have its undertone shift as you age. So this is actually very accurate to real life. Technically, because Sam has gone through puberty, his hair should probably be even darker than this, but this can happen in real life, and people are born with pink and purple and green hair, so let's not nitpick too much, alright? Depending on whether or not we're factoring in the fatherless kids or not, we have a 1/6 to 1/4 chance of the child inheriting either of their parents' hair colors, which is not great odds. That's at most a 25% chance. At most. Which it does feel weirdly low. And yes, I am assuming that anyone who does not explicitly say they dye their hair is rocking their natural hair color. My main reason for this is that both the kids have unnatural hair colors, and I find it unlikely that they're both consistently dyeing and maintaining that. Especially with Vincent. Ken is very much like military manly man. I do not get the vibe he'd be into his son dyeing his hair pink. I mean, he might, but I think we're working with anime logic here. Now, I can't technically make a conclusive chart that shows how all these genomes map out because there is no genome that makes you have pink or purple or green hair in real life, but I'm going to do my best. But first, I'm going to explain how hair genes work really quick. It is obviously a very simplified explanation, but basically people have multiple genomes. When 2 people decide to have a child together, the child will randomly inherit 50% of their mom's genes and 50% of their dad's genes. How the genomes express depends on what they inherited. For example, in real life, blonde is a recessive gene, so you need both parents to have the blonde genome in order to have blonde hair. If the child inherits a blonde gene and a brunette gene, the child will be a brunette, because brown is the dominant gene. By this logic, Ken has 2 blonde genes, and so does Sam, which would mean that Jodie has a recessive blonde gene that she did not express. Now, this makes sense in real life, but when you add pink-haired Vincent to the mix, things get a little weird. My proposition is that gene expression in the Stardew Valley world is not exactly the same as we have it in our world. I think that there are extra recessive genes that can cause colorful hair in people. So if we assume Jodie and Kent both have an unexpressed recessive pink hair gene, then their kid could absolutely have pink hair. This special extra recessive gene that people have would also give an in-universe explanation as to why so many of the kids don't share their hair color with their parents. So, if Pierre has chestnut hair, then he supposedly has the dominant brown gene. Caroline has the recessive gene, specifically a green version. Now let's say Pierre also has a recessive colorful hair gene, specifically a red or a pink version. Carolyn would have 2 recessive genes, blue and yellow, hence the green. So if they have a daughter, and the daughter inherits a recessive pink or red gene from Pierre, and then receives a recessive blue gene from their mother, they would have purple hair. And if we go with this line of logic, then if Carolyn and the wizard had a kid, they would either receive a blue-blue, a blue-yellow, a blue-red, or a red-orange. Which means the child would have a 25% chance of having blue hair, a 25% chance of having green hair, a 25% chance of having orange hair, or a 25% chance of having purple hair. Assuming that all these genes are in fact recessive, which I believe they are. And applying this logic, it would make in-universe sense the reason why the hair shakes out the way it does. I know that some of you have been screaming at the screen for a while now, so yes, I will address it. Abigail was born with chestnut brown hair. Her mother comments on it, and there appears to be a childhood photo of her in their room where she does in fact have brown hair. If Pierre has 1 dominant brown gene, then Abigail has a 25% chance of having brown hair. If he has 2, it's a 50% chance. So her inheriting her father's hair color does make perfect sense. She also does mention in-game that she dyes her hair, and will even comment and ask the player what kind of color she should dye it. I still hear the screaming, I know I'm missing something very important. Something that the theory has been hinging on. But I need to explain everything before I even got to that, because it's not actually the slam dunk you think it is. If you get married to Abigail and have high hearts with her, there is a very, and I mean very, small chance that she'll have some special dialogue for you. It is such a small chance that I played 2 in-game years of doing nothing but talking to my high-heart wife Abigail to try to get footage for this video, and I never got it. So here's a big wrench in my anti-theory machine. I can't even remember the last time I dyed my hair. I swear, it never fades from this color. Oh shit! Her magic wizard blood made her hair start growing in purple, like how the wizard's hair is purple? Well, this just no, it doesn't explain anything. First, she does not say, my hair is growing in as purple. She says, I swear my hair never fades. Which, as someone who has experience dyeing their hair a natural color every month for over 6 years, I can confirm that permanent, unnaturally colored hair dye will fade to a certain color and stay there forever. Look at my hair. You see the lighter parts, the highlighted parts? My hair has been that color for years. Now I refresh it when I bleach and dye my roots, but then it will eventually fade back to the same color and just stay there. I've had blue hair since I was 19 years old, and while my roots will grow in the same dirty dishwater blonde that they are naturally, the rest of the hair does not change. Abigail's hair is not fading from its current purple color, which, yeah, would make sense. Especially if she bleached it beforehand, which she would absolutely have to, by the way, if she wanted to go from brown to vibrant purple. Then yeah, after she's washed it a certain amount of times, it will just stay that way. She never says her roots aren't growing in. She only says, I can't remember the last time I dyed it, and I swear it never fades. None of that implies her hair is growing in as purple. I think people make this assumption because her portrait always has purple hair, but guys, they all have the same portrait. For forever. You could play 100 in-game years, and the portraits will never change. Their roots will never grow out. It is a video game. That is not how it works. Outside of these quotes, the only evidence I see people give it for being Abigail is that she has more of an interest in the doom and the occult than the average local. Which, so does Sebastian. But I don't see anyone putting him forward as a candidate. Except for me. And we put in contact with Pierre's line about being paranoid about his fatherhood, and the one about Carolyn walking by the tower, and her hair, and the wizard, and you put them all together in context, then yes, that is a picture that is painted. And I do not think that Eric put it in there for no reason. We've got to establish the validity of these claims are their own before we put them into context. And I am telling you guys, Abigail has chestnut brown hair, just like her father. She dyed it purple because she's an alt girly, and after she got married, at some point, she just stopped maintaining it. So it fades into the purple, and it stays there. Or I guess her hair just stops growing. Alright, Abigail isn't out of the running, but she isn't exactly a shoo-in either. There is some compelling evidence here, but I do think our other candidates are worth looking at too. So let's take a look at who we have left. Let's start with Penny. Just kidding! What are you talking about? There is literally nothing there. In fact, if you have high enough hearts with her, she will say, and I quote, When I was a little girl, my father abandoned us because he felt trapped. We haven't seen him since. I'm sorry to make things uncomfortable for you. It's just that this time of year makes me think about it for some reason. Anyway, how's the farm life going? Like, thanks for the random trauma dump on a Friday morning, my god. I don't know, for some reason I think of her as like a sad little Victorian child every time I talk to her. She's just so, like, pathetic and sad. But yeah, she hasn't seen her father since she was a child, and the wizard literally lives in the same valley as she does. So we can say she's like a secret, illegitimate kid, but I've met Pam, and no. Just no. As for Haley, same boat. There's nothing in her or anyone else's dialogue to suggest that she has any connection to the wizard. But she does mention that she does not get her sister, and that her sister feels the same way. Almost like something is fundamentally different between the two of them. Perhaps, they're not as closely related as we thought. That's right, I was an Emily truther all along. How could you have guessed? But before I get into my theory about why Emily is the unexpected top candidate, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our first ever channel sponsor, Joja. Use the link in my description to get 50% off your first case of Joja Cola. Joja, fuel your life. So, why Emily? Let's start with what could be perceived as either a positive or a negative, depending on how you look at it. We never meet Haley and Emily's parents. They left to travel the world 2 years before we even move in, and they've never come back. They send a postcard to their kids saying that they're in the Fern Isles, and that's everything we know about them. Because we don't know anything about them, we can't take anything about them as like evidence to support this theory. But because we don't know anything about them, we can project whatever we want onto them. Want to say that Emily's father knew about his wife's infidelity? That it caused a lingering rift in the relationship that lasted over 20 years? That living in the same town as the wizard, that seeing his illegitimate daughter every day kept the wound fresh, day in, day out. That, in a last-ditch effort to save his marriage and his sanity, he took all of his life savings and left Stardew Valley, traveling the world with his wife, trying to forget the sins of her past and rekindle whatever was left of their love. You can say that. No one can prove you wrong. And I'll be real with you, Emily being the wizard's daughter is a very vibes-based theory. It's very easy to nitpick every single detail of the evidence in the Abigail theory, but let's give credit where credit's due. There is actual evidence. I mean, there is evidence for the Emily theory. I'm going to get into it in a second. But the evidence that is there is much less direct. It makes it hard to disprove, but it also makes it less convincing. I like this theory because, one, I think it fits Emily's personality more than it fits Abigail's. I think Abigail's personality is kind of similar to her parents, albeit in a more youthful and rebellious flavor. And she also lives with them full time, which, if the theory is true, just makes it that much sadder. But Emily as a character is like, I don't just not fit in with my family, I don't fit in with the town. She's almost like socially removed from her community. She only has one real friend, Sandy, but she lives all the way out in the desert. And there's more of an emotional and social parallel between her and the wizard. Two, I think the fact that Emily has a sibling that is very different from her is actually a very compelling piece of evidence. I mean, obviously siblings are different from each other. They can look different, they can have different interests. I have a little brother, I can personally attest to this. I mean, like, we're not this level of different, though. And the fact to make it such a prominent point in the story is worth looking at. I mean, they are, like, opposite. Emily likes healthy food, Haley hates healthy food. Emily likes to dance, Haley hates getting sweaty. Haley is proactive in her household duties, Haley wants to shirk responsibility. Emily has a job with a reliable income, Haley is unemployed. Again, I'm not saying siblings can't be different, but this does feel extremely intentional. Emily also seems to be the only one of the bachelorettes that is kind of aware of and accepting of the more supernatural side of the valley. Like, there are multiple religious people, and I'd say she falls into that camp too, but she seems to be the only one who takes the more spiritual elements seriously. It's almost like she can see and feel things that other people can't, and uses yoga as a way to rationalize and process it. Hey, Ed and Corey here. Totally forgot to mention, she can bring people into her dreams. Like, that's one of her major heart events, is that she subconsciously pulls you into a dream she's having. Which, I don't know why I forgot to mention that, but yeah, that's, there you go. A little extra evidence for you there. But why does she see these creatures? Maybe she's just really open-minded. Or maybe, so we have a girl with unknown and unpresent parents, who is completely different from her only known family, whose personality is both hardworking and productive, while at the same time also being unusually mystical and whimsical. She literally has her 10 heart event in the Secret Woods. I don't know how much more I can spell this out for you. Again, it's vibes. It is vibes. But it makes so much sense to me. She is such a standout character compared to the rest of the bachelorettes. There's so many weird things about her personality that are never really explained in the game, but like this would explain it. I'm not going to sit here and say, it's Emily, I proved it. Even I can admit that the evidence for Abigail, while I don't think is conclusive, is much more overtly present in the game. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on who you think the wizard's daughter is. Do you think it's Abigail? Have I shaken your faith? Are you an Emily truist now? Let me know in the comments. So, the best candidates are Abigail and Emily. Not exactly a shocking conclusion. They both have evidence that points towards them, and they both have an interesting narrative you can construct around them, depending on if you want to go with that theory or not. I really think there are two ways we could view this. One, from an authorial intent perspective, and two, from a death of the author perspective. And while these are opposite ways of analyzing media, I think it is valid to take both approaches. Now, if you look at it from the death of the author perspective, then I think it's a pretty open-ended mystery. But Abigail is probably Pierre's biological daughter, and the wizard baby daddy thing is most likely small-town gossip. The wizard might actually have a daughter, but it probably wouldn't be someone we would immediately suspect. This is the approach I generally take when I make these theory videos, as I think it's more fun to do theory crafting when you look at the media more objectively, but I'll offer an alternative take for you too. I think from the limited knowledge I do of Mr. Barone, that the wizard probably doesn't have a secret kid at all. I think this is probably just flavor text that's put in here to make the story a little more interesting and to allow people to kind of make up their own ideas in their own head. He has specifically stated in some interviews that he has purposely left some of the character arcs unfinished in the game so that people can kind of fill in the gaps for themselves and create their own personalized experience with the game. The idea that Carolyn cheated on her husband, had the wizard's illegitimate kid, and that Pierre has been paranoid about it the entire time, that is a compelling story. In all honesty, it's a little intense for the vibe of the games he likes to make, and I think it's more likely they put it in there as like a fun rumor rather than an actual canonical confirmation. So, who's the wizard's secret daughter? No one. But probably Sebastian. Well, that was a fun one. True story, I thought this video is going to be like max 20 minutes. There's only like 4 important quotes and 2 real candidates, so I was like, yeah, be quick and easy palate refresher after the insanity that was researching making the Cold Bulletin video. Anyway, if you want even more Wizard Conspiracy, I did make a companion video to this one where I tell you my correct theory that is not as correct as you might think it is. It's over on my Ko-Fi. You can view it and all my other companion videos if you're a monthly member. Every cent of that Ko-Fi goes directly into making these videos better for you. So if you want to support me, head to the link in the description or subscribe to the channel. If you are a monthly member on Ko-Fi, you get your name in the credits at the end of all my main channel videos. How fun. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys being here. And remember,